Welcome back to Pace Law Firm. Talking today with Addie Greco Sanchez from AGS Rehab Solutions, Inc. And Addie is a vocational evaluator. Addie, what does a vocational evaluator do?
A vocational evaluator assesses a person's skills, aptitudes, and interests, and basically turns that into a report that then people will use to basically look at what things they're able to do based on their work history, training, education, experience, and the vocational testing results, and then determine what other occupations that person might be able to do.
And usually you're involved because someone has been in an accident and you've come in to decide what skills they still possess in order to do what job?
Exactly. So there's a whole battery of tests that take place, and basically through these tests then we look at things like academics, we look at finger manual dexterity, we ask them questions about their interests as well and have them conduct tests, inventories on those areas, and then from that make a determination on other vocational options that will work for them.
Let's take it through from where someone might meet you. Let's say someone has been involved in a car accident, they've been injured. Where do you come in the process and how do you help?
Usually it's at the tail end, after all the medical assessments have been done, because by that time we have a fairly good idea of what their residual impairments will be. And so from that we can say, based on this person's medical, sort of where they stand now in a snapshot, medically, physically, cognitively, all of that, then we can do the testing, which will look at their skills, aptitudes, and interests, as I mentioned, and then at that point we can determine what other jobs they're able to do, because usually by that time, whether it's an insurer or a law firm or an employer, by that time they're able to say that they need to be able to determine what other things they can do, because it's pretty much determined that they're not going to be able to go back to the work that they did beforehand. For example, you might be looking at a Portuguese man with grade 5 education who's worked as a carpenter, and he has a back injury. He's not going to be able to go back to the type of work that he did likely before his accident or disability, and as a result other jobs are going to need to be identified based on his present status and how he tests vocationally.
Now you come into this process, what is it, the insurance companies, the plaintiff injury side, what does each side need you to do in order to help this person?
It should really be the same thing.
Okay.
At the end of the day, we're looking at that individual and how we can help that person with the rest of their life. It's important that other work be identified if that's the case for that person. Again, it's very individual. Every case is customized. We need to look at the entire person from a holistic perspective. So we take into consideration if this is a catastrophic injury, what limitations, again, they're left with, whether they're cognitive or physical in nature, and then what their vocational testing is. And then based on that, then we can look at a whole new avenue for them.
One thing I was really interested in, before the interview we were talking, and you mentioned that it's much more specific than I thought it was. So you actually have a very rigorous, objective test that you follow every time, and then
Yes.
there's also a list of occupations that match these test results. Just take us through a little bit of that.
Well, there's a battery of tests, and basically we look at aptitudes. So we'll do something like what's called a RAT4, and a RAT will look at reading, writing, arithmetic ability. So from that we can gauge what kind of academics this person has. We'll also do some finger manual testing. We do a computerized assessment that is not looking at their computer skills, but rather we'll look at things like their cognition, their clerical ability, again looking at finger and manual testing, and again their aptitudes. And all of that will basically give us a picture of what this person is capable of doing. And then based on their test results, then we'll look at jobs that are within that range, so that they're not working, or we're not identifying jobs that are beyond their capacity, and that they'll be successful when we're reintegrating them back into the workforce.
I mean, it does beg the question, I guess, when you talk to the client and you got their test results and you're matching them with jobs, I mean, what if they don't want to do that job, or what if they want to do another job?
And sometimes that's the case. We take into consideration their interests, of course, so we do a battery of interests testing, and then from that, we'll take into consideration, well, this tends to be a person who likes to work more with data and things rather than people, for example. So we may look at identifying jobs that are more physical in nature as opposed to jobs that are more social in nature.
Okay.
So it's important to take a person's interests into consideration when we're looking at vocational evaluation.
Okay. How can, this is Pace Law Firm, so a little plug here, but how can plaintiff personal injury lawyers use your services?
Well, it's very important in building their case, obviously, because they need to look at the employability of an individual. So coming in again at the end, after the medicals have been completed, it's important then to paint a picture of what that person's future is going to look like. They need to look at residual learning capacity, for example. For example, we did a vocational evaluation on a nurse. Actually, she was a student studying to be a nurse and was in a horrible, catastrophic accident where it became very clear that she would not be able to complete her studies in nursing. And I came in on the scene a couple of years later and completed a vocational evaluation and determined pretty much that she would never be able to work in her field. But we needed to look at her residual capacity in terms of what would she be able to do in alternate jobs. We were able to identify some menial jobs, but obviously they would not be in the same pay scale as somebody who was going to be a graduate and work in a nursing capacity. So it was very helpful for the lawyers to have that information because it was basically able for them, it gave them the ability to go back then and determined what, based on the jobs that she was identified to do, what the differential would be in terms of what she would be paid out in the end.
Compensation from insurance
Exactly.
and stuff like
Yes.
Are there jobs for everybody? Is there something for everybody, or do you ever run into things where you're like, I just don't know?
Our philosophy is that work is healthy, and we like to believe that people can go back to work. There's a huge quality of life issue. People feel like they are purposeful when they're working, and we like to think that there is. Sometimes it's not possible to determine occupations for every person. And this is determined on a number of factors. We have to look at the person from a holistic perspective again and take into consideration their education, training, experience, their presentation, whether or not there's going to be a fit for employment with them. And to answer your question, not everybody is.
Not everybody. Let's just go back a little bit. I was kind of interested in your story because you gave us a little bio and everything, and I was reading about it.
Mm-hmm.
Take us back to you started out in the basement and you made your own company. Just talk about that a little bit.
I did. I've been in the industry since 1989, and then about 10 years after that decided that it was time for me to go out on my own, and basically started in the basement. It was just myself and an administrator, and I did casework to start, and then educated myself on vocational evaluations, took lots of vocational theory courses and different assessment components, and became a vocational evaluator, and love to do that. Now I have a team of more than 7 staff, full-time staff, and over 25 consultants across Ontario, and I'm just buoyed by the passion that all of the professionals that I work with have, and I like to think that it marries my passion for this industry.
That's excellent. Now, I just wanted to touch on one other thing as well, because we were talking previously, and there's something you were intimating, or I asked you, and you were intimating that there was some kind of an us versus them attitude that can crop up because you're testing someone. What would you like patients out there to know about what you do, that you're actually trying to help them and you're not trying to hinder them?
That's a good point, Sean. And really we are. We try to be as gentle with people as we can when we meet them. We prepare them in advance, and as long as it's not a litigious case, where we're able to send them a letter or communicate with them and say, just so you're aware, this is what's going to be done. It's going to take about 4 to 6 hours. come with a snack, bring your eyeglasses, your medication. We like for people to be prepared in advance because it makes for a much better, much friendlier testing environment. And at the end of the day, we hope that this will give them something to take away, that they can say, okay, I understand, I may not be so smart, but I do have these other aptitudes and skills, and maybe I can do something with that and be integrated into the workforce.
Excellent. Plug, AGS, go ahead. Where do we find you? Where do we call you?
agsrehab.com on the World Wide Web, and I am the president and founder, and we basically do rehabilitation to help people back to work, and it can be anything from case management to occupational therapy to vocational evaluators, and we work a lot with insurance companies.
Lovely. Okay. Addie Greco Sanchez, thank you very much for coming. And
Thank you, Sean.
Contact her at the number that you see on the screen, and contact us also at the website you see on the screen, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.